On this episode of the Star Trek Universe podcast, we are talking about Star Trek Picard, episode 103, The End is the Beginning, right after this.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name is Matthew Carroll.
I am David C. Robertson.
What is up, Dave? How are you, buddy?
I am well. I am I'm doing okay.
Good.
How are you, man?
I'm good. Just watch some Picard. You know, that's always a good part of my week. So these last 3 weeks. By always, I mean 3 times.
Well, 2 out of 3.
But I rewatched last week's. And I did feel much better about it on a second rewatch.
Did you?
I think most of my feelings about episode 2 are a result of what I was wanting from this show, and not necessarily what they wanted to, the story they wanted to tell. Mm-hmm. So I tried to look at it with different eyes and not have such expectations on it, and
right.
I didn't mind it nearly as much.
Yeah, I try not to be an entitled fan. You know, I try to be a good person. It doesn't always work.
Yeah, and it's more like I saw these great mysteries I thought they were setting up and stuff, and that it just seemed like or mysteries and moral questions, and then those went by the wayside. But rewatching, like, the storyline that they're telling is interesting to me as well. It's just not what I thought we were getting. So we'll see. We'll see. And I like the direction of this episode for the most part.
Yeah,
a lot better. There's definitely some interesting stuff in this episode. You want to go ahead and dive into episode 3 here and talk about it?
Sure, we can talk about it
while we're here.
I thought that's what we were doing.
Yeah, no, spoiler alert for episode 3. We're about to spoil it. So this is our, at least partially getting the crew together episode.
Yeah.
There's kind of 3 major storylines going on. You got the Rafi stuff, the Picard stuff, and the Soji meeting Ramda, the former Borg, or XB as they call them.
Right.
So the XB stuff, or the Ramda stuff, was interesting to me. It made me think my random theory from last week about the preservers was right.
Oh man, how much would that would be so good.
Yeah, last week, if you weren't here last week, I randomly said that I was just trying to think of a reason that the Zhat-Vash would have some secret. I was like, what could the secret be? I was like, the preservers. They created us, and we're all actually AIs. Like every being in the universe is an AI, and that was my joke theory. And then this episode, they're talking about a shared mythology. And how Borg can function well if they have or ex-Borg can function well if they have the shared mythology. And, and the Zhat-Vash is like, was I right? Did I call it? I didn't even think about that ahead of time. I just spitballed that shit. But now we know Soji is somehow interested in a shared mythology. And she seems interested directly in what the shared mythology that the Zhat-Vash seem to have. So that's all very interesting.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with them. I'm still trying to wrap my stupid brain around it. I'm not smart enough for this show. I feel like I'm stuck between some I'm in some strange place where I feel like I'm a little too smart for the show at times, and then also I just don't know what the hell they're talking about the other half. Like, I'm like, that's ridiculous. They wouldn't do that. And then the other half of the time, I'm like, no, I don't know what this is. This is way too smart for me.
What's the thing that seems too smart? I don't understand.
Like just everything they're saying, like all their little coded messages, everything that she's like, all the stuff that she didn't know that she like somehow knew. and didn't realize she knew.
I just think that's her.
All of that.
All that's her being activated. Like So it's stuff that her android side. It's like she's sort of walled off, just like Daj had it. Has the ability. Had the ability to fight, and Soji here had the ability to rush that knife or rush that disruptor and stop it. Soji has all that ability too, but not just physical ability, but she also has like knowledge that she doesn't know that she knows. And then whenever it starts to spill out of her, she's like, "Well, I didn't really even." And we're learning this for the first time. She says, "I didn't even know I knew that until I said it out loud." Basically.
Well, yeah, I felt better about it once she said that. But, like, before that, I was just like, what am I missing? For just a second, I'm like, did I completely just fade out or something? Or am I just not understanding? I don't know. I'm not sure how smart I actually am. So a fair amount of the time, I'm just sitting there trying to figure out, like, am I not getting this because I'm stupid, or am I not getting this because they haven't revealed something yet?
No, I think most of it's just the lack of reveal. I think there's still a lot to be revealed about Daj and Soji and the Zhat Vash, and we just don't know what any of them are going for. And what I want to know is, as we're talking about, it seems like there's this sort of other side to these androids that they don't even really know what is there, and I'm curious what their mission is. It seems like she's trying to, as we said, trying to find out this shared mythology among. It almost is like Soji was looking to the future. Soji was looking for advanced cybernetics. She was going to the Daystrom Institute, right? And the other sister is like digging into the past and trying to find out what the Zhat Vash know. Which I don't know. It's very interesting. Yeah, whatever. It's hard to say, okay? Oh, man. So, yeah, well, let's maybe make it a little through the episode here. Let's see. What'd you think of Picard's one last desperate wild solution in this episode of resignation, and thinking that it really gives credence to what last episode we were looking at with the Admiral speaking of his hubris. He obviously is. He does have a lot of hubris. He thought he could change the entire fleet by offering his resignation, and he couldn't.
Yeah, which he's a celebrated admiral.
Sure.
He's the great Jean-Luc Picard. This is I mean, of course they should. I mean, you know what it reminded me of?
As the EMH elucidates in this episode,
right? And I don't want to get too far into another continuity here, but it reminded me of the 11th Doctor. How he became so great and so feared and so powerful that even he had like completely bought into his hype, and he has to fall. You know what I mean? So. Yeah, I don't know. I very, very much liked that. I liked that even at this stage in his life, Picard has become so influential and so celebrated that he would even deign to think, you know what? I'm going to offer my resignation. That'll do it. I'll give them an ultimatum. Either they lose me or, they lost me.
Yep. And I think it all goes to the point from last episode that he's like, he wants to be consequential again, and I think his pride is hurt by his own humanity, his own death approaching, and his pride is hurt by, his pride was injured 14 years ago, and I think he hasn't. He was always a pretty sure of himself man, You know, he's always been that, and I think he's been questioning that for the last 14 years.
I think there must be a measure of, you know, all the times I save the world, all the times I save the universe, save the Federation, reminded Starfleet of what it was about, you know, all of these great things, and what was it for? At the end of the day, I'm still not really, you know, like, it doesn't matter.
Right. Absolutely.
You still can't stop the inevitable decline of greatness. And that's true of both himself and Starfleet.
Absolutely. And what does it mean going forward? What is this show going to say about that? Because they're playing with those themes so heavily that I really don't want to see Picard just like go out and do such great things that he loses that sort of perspective. Like, I think learning and like growing from this is like the way this show needs to go. But I don't know. I could see it just like, you know, like you said, Doctor Who, him becoming an even greater Doctor Who at the end of this, you know, like, oh, he did even greater things, you know, which I hope he does. I want him to do greater things, but I want him to do it and like learn some humility, kind of, I guess.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Being that Michael Chabon is the showrunner here, and we know that he's not for season 2, but he'll still be an executive producer. We know that he wants to carry on his Calypso storyline, his Odyssey in Star Trek. And he's introduced to the idea of the Vidraish, which is, you know, syncope of the Federation. We know that they're going to be in those territories in Discovery season 3.
Yeah.
How much do you think this is the downfall of Starfleet, and this is the downfall of the Federation into what becomes in some 830, or no, sorry, I guess it would be 700 and 700 and something years, supposedly?
I don't think that it's that. I think that there's a lot of things that have to happen to bring that about. I don't think, at least anything yet, that we've seen in this story. I mean, obviously it could butterfly effect into something huge in the next few seasons, and I think it will. But I think that, wisely or not, the creators of this show and the creators of Discovery are banking on the fact that those are so far apart that they can kind of work independently. But I do think, because they're in the same universe, we're always going to be asking those questions. And I don't think they're thinking on the level that we are about how is this going to be. I don't think they're going to connect it, honestly, like in a really close, meaningful way.
The only reason I do is because of Michael Chabon.
Right. Calypso. I just think I think that Michael Chabon creating Calypso and having the Vidraish be the Federation or whatever, which, if you guys have not seen Calypso, it's a short trek. There's some sort of faction called the Vidraish that are sort of the antagonists of the story, and it wasn't even on screen. It was later talked about how the Vidraish were the Federation. And so I think that the only connection is that Michael Chabon has those themes in mind. I think he thinks the downfall of the Federation is where things have to go for this universe to flourish.
Well, we also know that the downfall of the Federation is also a big sticking point in season 3 of Discovery, where they spoilers for season 3 of Discovery. If you care about that show, they have now gone into the future. They're going to be 930 years in the future. So,
right. Well, that's what I mean. I think I think that's it. I think that he likes to play with those themes. And I also think the downfall of the Federation has to do a lot with how some people view America today. And I think that they're playing with those themes because they're trying to make a story that is relevant to who we are. And honestly, I think Janeway at her height is the problem with America and the problem with like the Federation being a analog for America, which I think in many ways it kind of is in the older stuff. But at some point it just starts to feel colonialistic. And it's just like Harry Mudd is always talking about how the Federation is the boot on his neck, like that's the Federation is the empire in many ways. And I think that people are trying to play with those ideas while still trying to maintain the hope of humanity on these shows and still maintain the hope of the Federation. Clearly in Discovery they're trying that, and in Picard it's like sometimes I think the themes they're going for are like you can have a great organization like the Federation, but you never get to stop fighting for it.
Yeah.
So and I like that. I think that's a cool thing that as much as I like the hopefulness of Star Trek, there's all kinds of problems with it being a little too simplistic for just all the good guys to be good guys, and all the Federation to always kind of be the good guys. I
love that Rios is former Starfleet. He was the captain of a heavy cruiser, I think they said. And,
me too. I am very fascinated by the character of Captain Rios so far.
Did he make his EMH look like him? Is that what's happened?
I didn't get that. I just thought they're both guys with similar looking guys with beards. I didn't. Are they the same? Are they the same person?
I can't not the same find person. I think they are. I can't find a listing for the EMH on the show.
Oh, that's very funny. I did not realize it. I'm really bad at faces, like to the point that it's ridiculous.
You played. You have face blindness.
I really do. Like, this is not a joke. I do video editing as part of my career is video editing, and I edit weddings. And sometimes I have to call my girlfriend in from the other room to ask her which one is the bride. Like once she takes the white dress off, I can't track her face anymore. Like I can literally pull up two shots of the bride and be like, is that the same person? And I can look at their faces and not be able to tell. Like it's that extreme. And I know me and you've had this discussion all our lives that you have a really good sense of people's faces, and I never do. And I've realized over the last few years that it's actually a pretty extreme thing for with me. And I don't know if it's just like inattentiveness or if it's I don't know. Or if I actually have some sort of face blindness, whatever that means.
Well, we weren't really certain. Me and my wife kept pausing it and going like, is that him? Is it the same guy?
That's funny.
And then we're like, yeah, I think it is. And then a few minutes later, we're like, is it? I can't find the listing for the EMH, but Santiago Cabrera says that he's only playing Rios on IMDb and on Memory Alpha. So, I'm a little confused, a little concerned.
Interesting.
Of course, I keep getting like hung up on visuals.
You may be right. Yeah, I just pulled it up. Yeah, you may be right. He does look very similar.
I think they've even got the same like mole on the one side of their face.
Interesting. Yeah, you're probably right then. I don't know. I don't know, man.
Yeah,
it's funny.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I keep getting distracted by little things like in the scene where Picard comes down and tells Rafi that they chose to accept his resignation. Mm-hmm. I had to like do everything in my power not to focus on how like bulky the back of their tunics were. Like there's like a flap on the back of their neck, and I was just like, dude, you guys could have done. You can like see where it folds over and like velcros, and I was like, you guys, who designed that? Girl.
That's funny.
And then like I also got a little distracted by how much she kept calling him JL. That was weird. He doesn't feel like a JL to me.
I liked JL.
You liked it?
Yeah. I think that was just Rafi. I don't think that's him. I think that's who Rafi is. And so I think that her calling him JL just kind of makes sense for her character, and that's just what she would call him. I dug that. I thought that was kind of cool. It's kind of nice because we've had him called Captain and Picard and all these things for so long, but no one's ever called him JL. I don't know. It's kind of neat.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily hate it or anything. It was a new kind of relationship.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That I'm not used to like seeing someone have with Picard. She may have said it too much. Like they were trying to drive home the fact that yes, she's talking to Picard and calling him JL. But
I just think that's what she calls him. So, and she had a lot of reason to call him by name this episode with the kind of conversations they were having.
Yeah, I
do think
never...
that EMH is played by the same guy. I'm looking at him. It's just the beard. Like he's got the same beard and like the same coloration in the beard. Yeah. It's weird because I like it so much because he's acting so differently, and that's really, really cool. Yeah. It's two completely different characters. That makes me feel knowing that we have this guy. Captain Rios, who is, we know he has a sort of a Federation side that Picard sees based on his work, even though he won't kind of like deign to show his hand. I'm interested in the fact that like he's created this EMH to look like himself, and the EMH is also, a very sort of like. The EMH is a lot more like traditional Starfleet. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I wonder if there's like something going on there with the character where he's like created kind of the Federation version of himself, sort of the goody two shoes version of himself to live there on the crew and to sort of take a crap on whenever he wants to. Like it's an interesting character thing. Happening more than just having if that's the case that it's the same actor, which I think it is. It's crazy. It's neat.
Yeah,
I like it.
I kept thinking as I saw when we first meet him, and he's got the big shard hanging out of his shoulder and he's smoking, and I was just like, this is like a perfect combination of Mal Reynolds and Ash Williams from Evil Dead.
Interesting. Yeah, I would not have called Ash Williams, but I definitely see the Malcolm Reynolds. I mean, we saw the Firefly nature of this show like back in the trailers, and you got your Kaylee, you got your Zoe, which I wanted to imprint Zoe onto her. But Firefly's a great show. If you don't know it, you should. But Zoe is. She has a similar look, clearly. But like,
I don't know what you mean.
It was a racial thing. No, I mean, not just racial, but like also the way she's dressed a little bit, the hair, and her general kind of badass attitude. Like she's a very Zoe-like character. But then this episode we got to know her, and I was actually, because I was imprinting that on her a little bit, I was very surprised when she was so sensitive. When she was so clearly sensitive. And I kind of expected, because of the trope of Zoe, I expected her to be like a little more guarded with her emotions. But she was not guarded at all. She was very open with Picard about how hurt she was that he never came to see her. I really liked that. I liked it. I liked that she's not a trope at all. She's a different character.
Yeah. I would say she's a different character. Yeah, absolutely.
I was a little not worried. I was almost excited when I was watching the trailers for this, and I see that like it's Captain Picard with a crew that like so many of them reminded me of Firefly characters. I was like, I was excited that it might be kind of like Firefly in Star Trek, but seeing the characters and getting to know them, I like that they're so different.
Yeah.
But this guy is definitely Malcolm Reynolds. I mean, he's a guy who used to fight he used to be a part of a big, organization and then that didn't work out, and now he's working on the fringes, taking work for hire. Like, it's great. It's really great.
Yeah, I can see it. That could be fun. I wonder what they'll do with him.
I'm excited about him. I really am. I thought it was weird that he I thought there'd be a little more friction with Captain Picard being in charge. I mean, I guess he's hired the guy, so I guess he is in charge. But when he looked at Picard to say engage, I don't know if that was part of his. I guess him saying engage is probably part of his legacy or part of his. What's the word I'm looking for? His mythology around Captain Picard. I don't know.
I don't know. Like, I feel like the only person who actually really like acknowledged it was Alison Pill's character, Girardi, Dr. Girardi. And my wife paused it and rewound it. She's like, "It wasn't enough. I have to hear him say it again."
No, that's awesome.
And then as we see Alison Pill smiling again, my wife goes, "Allison knew." Like, all right. And I did like conjure things in my head, like, okay, how on record is it that he said that all the time?
Yeah. Because it must be like just part of, I mean, he's clearly very famous. Everyone's read books by him. Everyone knows him. The EMH and Captain Rios have the conversation about all the things that he did. So I'm assuming there are like holo novels about him, and probably like written by like Barclay or something, like whatever, like some crew member probably wrote memoirs or holo novels about him, and therefore there are probably a lot of people out there who actually do know his personality. At least
I hadn't considered that.
Yeah, the mythic version of him. Just like they do holo novels of old. Just like he would do those holo novels of what was the character that he would always play in TNG.
Dixon Hill. Yeah. Just like he would do those. There's probably people, this 20 or 30 years on, they're doing holo novels of the Enterprises. Like, there are people that are like, well, we even know, not that people like this ending, but we know that, Riker and Troy did the holo novel of the Enterprise from Enterprise, the show Enterprise. So like that stuff happens. So I'm assuming that's what we have here. Is people probably know his character, at least a fictionalized version. I think it's interesting to know the fictionalized version versus the real man, and I think that hopefully will come up. Hopefully that will come up. I think that would be amazing. I hadn't considered that until you just started talking about it, but. That's one of the things I loved a whole lot about Logan.
Yeah,
spoilers for Logan too.
If you
haven't seen it. In Logan, they have comic books that are like the fictionalized stories of what supposedly really happened, and Logan's pretty jaded about that,
right?
And I just love that idea.
Let me ask you this: how would you feel?
Ask me what.
And last week we even got negative feedback on iTunes about being picky about the starships. How would you feel if we found out Discovery and Picard are the real world, and all the other Star Trek that we've watched all these years has been the holo novels that exist within that real world?
I would be confused. I would be really confused. I would be really pissed, I think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that's totally fair. It's just a thought, though. It's a headcanon way to make all the ship stuff make sense.
Oh, look. Okay, we did. We got a 1-star review on Apple Podcast. And the guy says, once good podcast went petty. And I was going to talk about it later, but this is fine. He says, really a 2-second hologram shot of Enterprise that doesn't look exactly like the 66 model, and you are done with the Picard series? That's petty, and quote-unquote fans like you are reason the fandom is so divided and bitter. Used to love your cast, but I'm moving on. Well, I don't know if this guy's still listening. Personally, I don't think I would ever say something that heated and give a 1-star review and then not listen to the next episode to see if it was addressed. But maybe he is done. Thing is, I never said I was done with Picard.
You said you were deciding it was in a different universe, and you had to headcanon it into a different universe. But yeah,
right. I had to headcanon it into a different universe.
You said you were no longer interested, really.
I said I'm fighting to be interested. But here's how I've maneuvered around that. See, we're talking about this stuff like 2 seconds after it airs,
right.
after we watch it.
Absolutely.
So I have a lot of feelings. I've been a fan of Star Trek since I was born. So 36 years I've been watching this shit. And it's not that it doesn't look exactly like the 66 model, because there were like 4 different 66 models and they all looked a little different. And, you know, even back then, like, they would use stock shots, so the Enterprise would change from shot to shot. The same thing happened on Next Generation. There were 2 or 3 different models that were just clearly not the same ship. Part of that is you get used to that, and you have to headcanon some of that, and then they come in with their HD and they fix that. And, you know, I love the HD remaster of the original series, but I kind of think they made it a little flat looking, the ship. I'm glad that there is consistency in what the ship looks like from shot to shot now. But, you know, there's all sorts of, like, you know, okay, I get it. Okay, I get it. Okay, I get it. But I have an idea of what that original series model looks like, and there has been some standardization over the years, over what it looked like during the cage, what it looked like during the second pilot, and what it looked like over the course of the series. And it's not about exactly what it looks like. As I said, it's not about that 2-second hologram shot. And by the way, we had problems with that episode beyond that, but it's not about that. It's about the intent of what the producers are trying to say, because they know that the Prime Universe people are going to watch Picard. They know that the fans who don't dig Discovery are going to watch Picard. I like Discovery. I enjoy Discovery. I'm fine headcanoning that into another universe. So how I've gotten around it, basically, in my own head, is that the same exact story is happening in the Prime Universe, but just that 2-second hologram shot is a little different.
All right.
That's how I had to do it. But yeah, I'm not trying to be. I mean, what do you want, man? I gotta make myself care. Right?
Yeah, I hear you.
And I don't think that I am the reason the fandom is so divided. I think fans want what they want. Everybody wants something different. And at this point, more than 50 years into a fandom, a lot of different people are going to want a lot of different things.
Yeah, for sure.
But we're not all just going to like sit in the corner and jerk ourselves off because, oh God, there's more Star Trek. We have opinions and we have feelings about these things. Yeah. And if you want to listen to a podcast where people just unabashedly praise whatever was produced, you could always watch that Will Wheaton after show.
That's true. And the thing is, like, me and you also disagree on this pretty extremely. Like, I do not really care about the ships changing. Like, it doesn't affect me, and that's fine. But I know that you do, and I know that some people out there agree with you completely. So that's why I'm not like gonna, sit here and rag on you for that.
You can't tell faces one from the other.
I mean, I can, I can. And especially like now that I've actually gone and paid attention and I've looked at the diagrams. I looked at the diagrams this week, partially just to be able to have this discussion with you, because I looked at the diagrams and I completely see that they could line up as the same universe. Like, they just look they look similar enough that could be a refit, and they line up in so many ways. It's mostly just the struts, and those struts could have just been like some sort of experimental struts they used for a while here and there, or something. Whatever. But anyway, let's without getting too hung up on all that. That's that. So if my objections with last week's episode had nothing to do with any of that.
No.
My objections had all to do with the storyline, and I still, like I said, this episode it feels better. Even last episode on a rewatch felt better. I did want the things that they are tackling, all the Data stuff, all the Borg stuff, the Romulan stuff, the Federation falling to fear and anger. All that stuff is stuff I want them to explore. And last episode seemed like a step in the wrong direction to get those things explored. That was my problem with it. Had nothing to do with the ships.
Our friend Matthew West Fox wrote into us. And he said he was also disappointed with that episode. And he said the synths weren't acting autonomously, or at least most of them weren't. He says the Romulans, I was excited to see what happened to their society, how much they changed after the tragedy, but instead we're just back to secret Romulan plots and murder, which I second, because I've always wanted to see more of Romulan culture, and we always just get like Romulan plots. He says, for a second, I got excited that maybe the Romulans were being framed by rogue elements in Starfleet, led by Vulcans who never trusted the Romulans. But it's all just a Romulan plot, which I think this week brought it to a different place. I think there is definitely some sort of Federation. He said half of them didn't want to save the Romulans in the first place. And he says the worst part is hard to see the Federation as being wrong for not trusting the Romulans when we are seeing so many Romulans doing the underhanded scary stuff the Federation was so afraid of.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's what's happening anymore. There's something else going on. The Romulans, Romulan cabal are in cahoots with the Federation in some regard.
Well, at least with Commodore O. She is for sure. Which we didn't discuss it last week, but there were a lot of discussion online about who Commodore O is. A lot of people thought she was a Romulan, which is still possible. I think she's a Vulcan, like actually a Vulcan.
We've seen bad Vulcans
for whatever reason. Yeah, for sure. And for whatever reason, I think that her logic has led her to joining forces with this Romulan cabal that's going on, which, that's interesting to me. I love the idea of logic leading you to a dark place, because that happens to me every day.
I really like that idea. I think that is something that, like, even in my life, probably once a week, I find that, like, just being completely logical could possibly bring me to make, like, horrible, mean-spirited choices.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Or cruel. Not really mean-spirited, obviously, I guess, but cruel, heartless choices. So, and they played with that a lot on the original Star Trek, like a whole lot, where, like, McCoy would be like, you're a bastard. How could you say that? And Spock's like, it's only logical, Doctor. But
in many ways, it is what Star Trek was about. At least to me, the original series, that's what it's about. Like, more than anything else, it's about the, like, balance between emotions and logic, and having Kirk in the middle, pulled in two directions, choosing between the options that are presented to him by his crew, and trying to come up with a third option that is able to avoid the pitfalls on either side. And I love the original series for that. I think that's one of those interesting things about it. And so, those themes existing in this show are great. I love that.
Yeah. So I don't think I care whether O is Romulan or Vulcan. It just depends on how it's done ultimately by the end. I'll tell you this, and I didn't realize it was a thing until I saw it. Man, it is weird seeing Starfleet people in sunglasses.
Yeah, that's
just
funny.
like, what is that? What? Oh, this is weird. I have strange feelings about this. She looks like my grandma or something.
Yeah, that's funny. That is a weird shot. There were a bunch of things. So, what'd you think of the Vasquez rocks being used as the Vasquez rocks?
I mentioned that to my wife. I was like, hey, for the first time in Star Trek history, the Vasquez rocks are being used as the Vasquez rocks.
I thought that was really neat.
That's crazy.
I assumed that when he went there last week, at the end of the episode, and we saw him in the background. But I liked that we actually got it on screen that this is the Vasquez Rocks. He's not like on some. He didn't teleport to a different planet. People, this is just the actual Vasquez Rocks.
Yeah. Now the part I didn't say to her is, just internally in my head, I was just like, I'm a little worried that they're going to the site of so many of the worst moments of Star Trek history.
I will say that was as much as I liked her differentiating her character and being very sensitive in this episode, she did kind of getting just drunk and crying was not the most like entertaining thing for me. I was kind of like, all right, get over it and get to your duty. You know what I mean? Like, I know you're not in Starfleet anymore. And I guess that's right. Part of this is like, with this crew currently, there's going to be no Starfleet code, which I am excited about in one way as a lover of Firefly, but I'm a little nervous about in that, like, what's their common bond going to be? In Firefly, they don't have one for a long time, and then they finally are given one, and it's really epic and interesting.
Oh, I think I know.
Oh yeah, tell me, what's their common bond? What's their reason?
Because clearly this guy has a hatred of Starfleet because there was a cover up, because his heavy cruiser or whatever was scrubbed from the books. I think he has the same issue with Starfleet that Picard does. Starfleet is no longer Starfleet,
and that Mal does.
Yep,
can't stop the signal.
That's right. I think he's got to respect Picard for the same reasons, because he left Starfleet for the same reasons Picard did. It's no longer Starfleet. Something's afoot. Yeah,
I think that's true. I do think we're gonna, at least on this first few episodes, I think they're gonna get into some trouble, and we're gonna have a problem because Rafi and Rios are both, not necessarily there. They're not there on a mission. They're there. Rafi just wants a trip to, what's it called? Cloud City. No, that's Star Wars. Something Cloud.
I don't remember now. Sky Cloud, maybe?
Sky Cloud? Yeah, that's weird.
I don't know what it was called. I really don't. I forgot. I already forgot.
Somebody was picking on Star Trek, or new Star Trek. They said they had like a meme going around that was like technobabble in the 80s, and it was like Data saying like the temporal distortion, like some long sentence, and then it's like technobabble now, and it just showed Pike saying time crystals. And that reminded me of that when I heard Sky Cloud. I was like, that's not a very Star Trek-y name of a place. I'm fine with it. It's not nothing wrong with it. It's a different vibe than we've had in the past.
I don't know. I think it's come full circle, because that was very much the vibe of the original series at times.
That's fair. That is fair. At times, yeah. And maybe it's the style of the time it was made. Like, I think we're looping back around to that sort of simplicity being okay again in our sci-fi, and I'm okay with it. I'm not upset at it. It just seemed funny.
I think, Joss Whedon once referred to Star Trek as sanitized for your protection.
Yeah.
And I think he was onto something there, but it was funny, and what is often distracting to me is in this new Star Trek stuff, Discovery and now Picard as well, is that they use a lot of lingo that people today use, and one of the great things about that sort of sterile language in The Next Generation, and I won't say the original series because that wasn't true. They talked like they were in old TV. But Next Generation had that sterile language, and what was great about that is like it was hard to date that. But now looking at Discovery and looking at Picard, you're like, oh yeah, they're saying shit like, oh, pro tip. I'm like, yeah, this was 2020, wasn't it? Like, they just say stuff that people say,
right?
And it's weird for me. It's a little weird. I mean, I guess this headcanon is cyclical, just like the style of the original series and the way people talk. 80s was a little, sterile and weird, and you were either doing coke or you were on Next Generation, I guess. So, whatever.
Oh man, I sent you that video last night of there's a video going around the internet of a guy who used a neural net, which is a thing apparently. It's not just on Star Trek. To analyze an 1895 video of these people boarding a train, and it's like, it's an 1895 video, so it's like super grainy and distorted, and he used some neural net to upscale it to 4K. And it's just crazy to me because they look so real. Like the people just look so real. I've never seen 1895 people look so much like just regular people. He upscaled it to 4K 60 frames per second. So they're like moving, and that uncanny valley of like new TV, not even uncanny. It's like too canny. I don't know. I don't know what the words. It just like when you watch a movie in 4K and it looks too real, it doesn't look filmic because it looks so real.
I don't think that's because of the 4K. I think that has something to do with the refresh rate setting or something. I was reading an article about that or something.
I think it's the 60 frames.
Well, someone was saying that was because when they were, I can't remember, when they were showing The Hobbit, I think, in 80 frames per second, people were saying it was actually hurting their eyes or something, and that it just didn't look fluid or something because it was so... It was so much, but
there were a lot of complaints about that too when 1080p came out, and a lot of it's because lighting and stuff is different, and it just it starts to look too real. It starts to look like cheaper because the lighting and the costuming and everything is made for less resolution cameras, and then once you get to that 4K level, it's like, whoa, I can kind of see all the things, and I don't need to see all the things.
Yeah, I haven't worked in video since 4K became like a regular thing. I just remember 2.996 and 1080. I think was the top I ever got to before I fell out of making videos. But yeah, new TVs confound me. I'm like, I know it doesn't look like this on my TV. Why does this look? It looks so strange. And I was worried about it too because we got a 4K a few months ago, but nothing has looked like how you see it in stores and stuff. You're like, why does everything look like it's being like sped up or something? There's something weird going on with the refresh rate or some kind of setting.
I'm sure. I know nothing about all that stuff. To be honest, I just found that video from 1895 fascinating because it felt like I was looking through a window to 1895, like just seeing normal people walking around looking normal, but it's over like 125 years ago. Like it was crazy. It's a crazy video. You check it out, everybody.
Yeah. It was like it analyzed all of these frames to, I guess, make it 60 frames per second. I have no idea how many frames per second the original was. What do you think, like 16, 12?
Yeah, something? Probably. Yeah, it's so crazy. All right, let's get back to Picard. There are definitely a few more things I wanted to touch on in my notes here before we move on.
Sure.
It is storming here like crazy. I don't know if you guys heard that crazy loud clap of thunder, but it's really storming here bad. Okay. I talked about Rafi. Her saying, "My life has been one long slide into humiliation and rage." Her character. I'm interested to see her. She's so sensitive. And we've seen it, like it kind of felt like she's supposed to be that badass stoic character, as I said, in the form of Zoe, but then she gets drunk in the very first time we really get to know her. She's drunk and super emotional, and so that felt weird to me. But I don't know. We'll see what that. Who is this character? Yeah. And when I say Zoe because the clear parallels of her being like a first officer on a small starship and being a black woman, but the parallels are not just with her. It's just like there's a lot of characters out there who have that sort of like stoic badass feel to them, and I feel like Rafi's got that, but then it's rare. I feel like normally the drunken episode where they show their emotions happens like 2 seasons in. You know what I mean? Yeah. And this is happening right off the bat, which I think is an interesting place to start her character.
I feel really bad for her because she was his chief of security, and she got canned just because he put in his resignation. That doesn't seem right, but I guess they're trying to cover up stuff, you know?
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to cover stuff, and I think that probably a lot of people that worked with him closely probably got shit canned because of the decisions being made on, and who knows what they did out there that was against protocol or whatever.
I thought it was interesting how she is basically was talking about how she was living in a hovel while he was doing his interview, and his fine antique furniture, his heirloom furniture with all of his oak beams and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm like, I thought you guys didn't strive for the accumulation of wealth. Why is she humiliated by what she has? Like,
yeah, no, it's interesting. It's really
that's interesting.
It's some of the first like sense of inequality we've gotten on Star Trek. Like, we know in Starfleet they don't get paid. They only care about their reputations or whatever. But like, you know, that doesn't mean that on these worlds there are haves and have-nots, you know? So that was interesting. It's interesting to see Star Trek tackle inequality a little bit.
It's interesting to me because, you know, I've wondered, you know, Picard says things to like Lily in First Contact, like, we don't strive for this, we're evolved, et cetera, et cetera. But clearly that's not true all over Earth even.
Or even within Picard in that moment.
Right. I mean, who knows? They might not ever go this way, but there might be a story to tell there about how Starfleet captains tell themselves that. You know, specifically, you know, I don't know, white cisgender male, you know, male captains who have everything, and it's like, oh yeah, we don't strive for that shit in the Federation, and then meanwhile, on Earth, 20 miles away, there are people living in trailers out in the middle of Vasquez Rocks. I don't know. I don't know.
I definitely think that's something that we're going to explore in this show more than we've ever explored on Star Trek before.
I feel like it should be tackled in some way on Star Trek because it's a thing right now. Yeah,
I totally agree. And I think that's one of the things with the sort of the downfall of the federational ideals. I think it gives us the opportunity to talk about those things. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about this Ramda stuff. So first off, the disordered is apparently what these people are. They look like people they look like clear allusions to like a mental hospital thing happened. Yeah. The disordered. Ramda is the last person to be assimilated, or the last part of the last crew to be assimilated onto this Borg cube. And also they said this, as far as they know, is all of the Romulans who were ever assimilated, which I found all that with, like, so apparently the disordered are this group of people, and they're all of the Romulans who were ever assimilated, and when they come out of being Borg, when they become XB, they are somehow mentally disordered. I thought that all of that was interesting and weird, and I don't know why all of that is happening. Well,
they did take great pains, it felt like, to say as far as they know, and the Romulans are very, very good at covering up things that would be to them shameful, and being caught off guard and assimilated by Borg, absolutely a thing they wouldn't want people to know about. There might even be a connection between the Borg and the Romulans, like perhaps like the Romulans had way more casualties to the Borg than they've ever let on. Obviously, maybe something even in the past. Maybe they met up with the Borg somehow before the Federation did even, and just kept that shit under wraps. Dude, there's no telling. They could go anywhere with the Borg, with the Romulans, because the Romulans have barely been touched. They're xenophobic. They're paranoid as all hell. They don't know anything about the Romulans, not for real. So they could pretty much go anywhere with the Romulans, and they could definitely tie the Borg into their fear of AI, of synthetics.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That might be why synthetics are such a mythic terror to them, is because of some past dalliance with the
some
Borg.
trauma with the Borg, possibly. It'd be interesting because as far as we know, they didn't reach this part of space or the Alpha Quadrant or whatever for a while, but who knows? I do think that something to do with their explorations of the Borg, or at least with Soji's exploration of the Borg, has something to do with. Man, this crazy lightning and thunder has something to do with artificial intelligence and what that means and what the Borg mean, and I don't know, the combination of synthetic and life. I think all that. She talks about the false door, which I did not understand, but I have a feeling it's somehow alluding to what's coming. She talks about the false door and how the Romulans always have a false door that no one can come in, no one enters or leaves through, and then she says something in Romulan. She says, are there certain people who are allowed in that door or something like that? And that made me think there's some sort of tie-in to the artificial intelligence, like maybe that door. It reminded me of like the Jewish tradition of having a chair for Elijah. Like maybe you have a door that is only for AI or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
I was thinking about that in relation to what do you call them? Where you say like a phrase and it shuts them off or opens them up.
Oh,
you know
right.
Like,
yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like it seemed like triggering words. Like she was, She was activating Ramda somehow, which I think she was, but I think it was Ramda's. I think it was more of a Ramda was being reminded of something. Probably the deep dark secret of the Zhat-Vath, because then she freaks out and everyone starts calling her the Destroyer. Yeah. So that's what I thought about the door, was that there's a secret entrance way or whatever where something is opened that is not supposed to be opened, or someone who has the code or the key, that trigger phrase can open the door. That's what it made me think of. Hell, it might be a wormhole. I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know what the hell they're talking about.
So Soji in that moment is activated, at least to some degree. It's really interesting, this idea of them being activated, because it's like their programming is running something different than who they are on the surface. So I think there's going to be a question asked by this series, either in this season or in a future, probably by the end of the season. Is Soji who she is on the surface, which is someone we all like? So was Daj, or is she the deeper thing? Is she the drives that are driving her when she's activated? And is this just a false skin? My initial reaction feels like all of the surface stuff of her is sort of false. It's this false person that's been built on top of her to protect her. So yeah, I don't know. What does that mean for Daj? What does that mean for Soji? Who are they?
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
It's creepy. I'm sure this is all stuff built into programming and whatnot, and maybe there's time travel involved here, but it feels like people are having premonitions or something. Like, it feels otherworldly, supernatural. You know what I mean?
Sure.
With the Romulan tarot cards. Yeah.
Well, the Romulan tarot cards, I think, yes, but they also say in that moment, "I met you tomorrow."
Mm-hmm. I mean, Borg stuff, you can go all over the place with time travel, but
that's true.
You have Data painting the daughter's face and everything. That kind of stuff's crazy.
That's what she even says. Are you the daughter that dies or the daughter that lives?
Right.
So what does all that mean? Oh gosh.
I think the Borg have been to the future and seen certain things.
Or the Romulans have, because
or both,
or the secret. Yeah, ooh. So you have my preserver theory. That's on file. My new theory.
It's in the Mind Palace. I didn't commit it to file, but it's
Come on, dude.
It's
What are you doing?
It's next to a skateboard that I hurt myself on when I was 8 in a hallway in my Mind Palace.
Another theory: the Romulans, the Zhat Vash, possibly in the distant past, got a hold of some time crystals or whatever, and went to the future, and they know the future has that the Romulan Empire is destroyed by AI. Mm-hmm. And maybe a lot of this Romulan lore, the two sisters on this little tarot card that she's holding, maybe all of that relates to Soji and Daj. Like maybe the story that is playing out now is a story the Romulans have known for a long time, and maybe that's why they're so interested in some of the stuff that's going on. Maybe the Borg play into it, and now they're Maybe the Zhat Vash have been holding on to a secret about the future for so many generations that it's almost lost to time, that they're still trying to fully even understand what all the stuff is, because it's as if, someone from the distant past saw a vision of the future, and then they tried to explain it and pass along that knowledge for thousands of years. Now they're actually encountering those events, and they're trying to navigate them. That's a possibility.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Oh. See, and now I get all weird and worked up, and I just had a thought that I shouldn't have had.
Okay. You don't have to. It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to censor yourself. You're welcome to say, even if it's negative about the show, even if it gets us another 1-star review.
That 1-star review says differently. I was just thinking. I was really like, the reason it's a bad thing is no. You know what? That 1-star review legitimizes us for real. The thing is. I don't want to be disappointed when it doesn't happen. But, man, I would love to see Sayla again. Disgraced from the Romulan government, like after the kerfuffle. Because her last appearance was Unification Part 2, if I recall.
Right.
Disgraced by the Romulan government, and like maybe she's devoted herself to this myth. Maybe they come across Sayla. I would just love that shit. I've always wanted to see what happened to her character.
Yeah, that would be fun. And she is someone who has experience. It would make sense if she ended up lining up with other, like if the Zhat Vash came to her because they have knowledge of the future. So they go to her and say, "We hear you have knowledge of the future. We need to let's compare notes." And then she could get sucked down the Zhat Vash rabbit hole.
Well, I don't know what knowledge of the future did she have?
Oh, she had the knowledge that her mother told her. She doesn't have knowledge of the current future. She had knowledge of Picard and the crew.
Oh, a past future.
The past future that was...
But wouldn't be the future now.
No. But you could see, if 40 years ago, when she first left, the Zhat Vash had gone to her and say, "Okay, well, we have all this. We know all this about the future. What do you know about the future? Because we need to compare notes and see what's coming." So you could see how she might end up in the Zhat Vash or part of the order
related to them.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying. I was like, wait, what am I forgetting? This shit became real. Wait, what? Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we hadn't really talked much about Hugh. He didn't do a lot this episode, but
He didn't.
It's great to see him again, man. It's great.
It's good to see him.
To see Hugh. So neat.
He's sort of in an administrative role. Doing his diligence, man. Helping out some Borg there.
Yeah.
Some ex-Borg.
It was neat.
I dug it, man.
I like it a lot.
Good to see him. That's about all I can say about it.
I'm going to see if I can find a audio book version of Tragic Sense of Life this week. See if I can get into the character of Captain Rios a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought it was strange that Raffi and Picard already know that there's a conspiracy in the Federation. I thought it was strange that we know it last week, and I thought it was strange that they already know it this week. It's like that seems like the kind of thing that'd be a surprise at some point to someone, but it just kind of like, well, based on these things, it's clearly there's some sort of.
Well, yeah, I think I was annoyed at the very beginning because she was like, I think they're Romulan conspirators. And I was like, oh, bullshit. But then later on, she was like, no, I have evidence. I had evidence. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you had evidence.
Yeah,
that's different. If you're just like flying by the seat of your pants, you're like, you know what this seems like? Romulans. I'm like, well, of course, Picard was like, yeah, no, they're not going to destroy their own world. What is wrong with you?
That's kind of how I felt about how Picard felt about it. Like, Picard was like, I think it's a Romulan Federation plot. And she's like, yeah, I've been saying that for 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah.
Picard, interesting stuff about his, like, character this episode. He talks about how he tried his best to belong in this place, never truly felt at home. He says, I suppose...
I almost cried.
Yeah, and she says, I suppose you've always had one eye on the stars.
Mm-hmm.
So that all ties in well with his story in Family, the episode of TNG Family, where he lived on the same farm growing up, but he always had his eyes on the stars.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed when they... Dude, okay, first of all, that fight scene was just balls, man. It was awesome.
That fight scene was amazing.
Crazy great.
And first, when Picard reaches under his desk and has a phaser there, and I was like, that's just badass, Picard. Just having phasers all around your house. But that's the thing, he had one under his desk, and that kind of makes sense, like, from I don't know, that's a common thing. But then one of the Romulans, I forget her name. Oh, I'm kicking myself.
In my head, I've been calling her Rihanshi.
I don't know what that means.
Instead of Rihansu, it's Rihanshi.
Okay.
I'm being stupid in my own head, just for my own humor. No one gets it. No one's going to know it. There might be two people out there listening to this who go, oh, yeah, Diane Dwayne, cool.
And then she reaches under a completely different piece of furniture, and there's another phaser. I was like, wow, Picard just has his house covered in phasers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, and we got a reference to the difference in the two different types of Romulans, which I love.
Yes,
he calls him a stubborn northerner and rubs his ridges.
No, she slaps him on his ridges and says, "Like you."
Yep, it's great.
I was like, oh, finally, some kind of explanation.
Yeah, that's great. And we knew by them having one of each in the house that they were going with the fact that they both exist. It's not a weird canon thing. They're just like, there are two types of Romulans. But this, we actually got him calling him a stubborn northerner, which I thought was fun.
Yeah. That was enjoyable. I loved my girl shooting the dude.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was on stun. No, it wasn't stun. There's no stun on Romulan disruptors. Oh.
I loved that. I loved it a lot.
Fantastic.
I thought it was interesting that Picard avoids the captain's chair. When he's on the ship for the first time, he almost sits in the captain's chair and then kind of keeps moving, like with this clear sort of pregnant moment where he's staring at the chair, like that. The mom is fake as hell, right? Daj and Soji's mom. We've said it in the first episode, but
the what?
Soji and Daj's mom is not real. Right?
Oh, you said fake. You said fake as hell.
I said fake as hell. Yeah.
Here's what I heard. Daj and Soji's mom is thick as hell. I was like, did we see that much of her to know she was thick as hell? Was it like that, man?
That too.
Was it like that?
And probably my favorite line of the episode, since we're probably not going to do really trivia and quotes, since this just came out 3 seconds ago, probably my favorite, and I don't have the quote exactly, but I loved the something to the effect of Captain Rios telling the EMH, save me the simplistic Sunday school morality. And then him saying back, save the moody teen moral relativism.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
It was great. It was really great.
A lot of fun. I was very interested to see Or to find out what he was talking about with, like, the last time he worked with someone like him, his brains wound up splattered all over a bulkhead.
Yeah, well, I think it's the captain he worked for.
Well, yeah, I just want to know what happened.
Oh, yeah, I think we'll get that. I think we'll get more information about him, but I think, like, this right now is just setting up the fact that Rios is very disillusioned. And yeah, again, they're going to have to work a little bit to separate him from Malcolm Reynolds in my mind as a character. Mm-hmm. Ooh.
Yeah, things are happening.
Yeah, we got storms. Storms are brewing over here
Flood
in Alabama.
alerts. Meanwhile, his name is Rios and he pilots for Picard.
All right. Well, you wrote half my song for me. Sweet.
I know. I was excited.
Oh man, yeah. That's actually. I'm a little concerned about this week's song because there isn't an arc in this episode. There's a lot of people in places, and it's. They did a lot of work to cover a lot of ground with a lot of different characters in this episode, and I feel like there's a lot of half songs in all these characters, and I'm sure another week they'll be fleshed out and it'll be really easy to write a song about almost any of these characters. But just from this week's episode, there's like there's not much, and so we'll see.
Oh, I know what your song's about, dude. I know what your song's about.
Having one eye on the stars, because that's the line that hooked me as a possible lyric. But I've already written one about the episode of TNG Family, and I've already written
that's true.
And I've already written last week's about. It's hard when it's been a lot of fun. I've written 12 songs about Star Trek, but at some point you start to go, oh, this song is a little too similar to that song. I gotta try to think of something different.
I want to hear you do a song explaining Rafi's conversion from drinking and telling Picard she's not helping him to him messaging her and saying on with it, and her deciding to actually help.
Yeah, I did like that moment a lot. And I liked the moment with where he sends her the research materials. He's like, "You're doing your research, right?" And she's like, "No, I'm not." And he's like, "Well, here's the everything from the Daystrom Institute." And she's like, "I didn't ask for this." And he's like, "All right, enjoy it. Bye." It's like
on with it.
On with it. I know you better than you know yourself. That kind of thing. Yeah, I do like that. But I just like where Soji is, just like where Hugh is, where Picard is in this episode, and where there's like four characters kind of introduced in this episode that like you just kind of get to know half of them. I really like Dr. Girardi and like her conversation about always wanting to see this, and so I'm willing to leave this place to go out and explore, just to like encounter danger, just because this is the thing that I've always searched for my whole life. But again, it feels like half the story, which it'll be interesting. And I was worried about this with a serialized. It was easy to write a lot of TNG songs, or easier, because each one is a self-contained thing. When you're looking at these, it's like. It's a lot, like this particular episode, for instance. There's a lot of half stories, and so I don't know. I'm gonna have fun with it.
How about you write a song from the perspective of the the Zhat Vash guy who knows as he's sitting in the chair that he's about to chomp into his freaking hydrochloric acid gusher, and kill himself and
absolutely could
ruin that dude's vintage jacket.
What in the world were they thinking? Not like taking care of that beforehand. They just saw someone do that. Last episode, I was watching that and I was assuming he was about to do that, and they didn't do anything to protect themselves. I would have at least put a bucket on his head or something.
Or just, I would love to have seen what the hell was that? And Picard's like, I forgot to mention that.
Oh, they do that. Which I assume these two Tal Shiar agents.
You have to watch out for that. They do that.
I would assume these two Tal Shiar agents know that, though. know some of the things these agents do. I don't know. Anyway, well, I think that's about all for us. We covered both the feedbacks that we had. If anybody else wants to write in feedback, StarTrekUcast@gmail.com. Anything else you want to talk about this episode?
Well, we had other feedbacks, but they were either, civil or in agreement, so.
Well, I mean, okay. Well, maybe next week we'll cover more feedbacks. I think it's good. It's good to bring everybody in on the thing. Talk about what they're saying.
Here's the thing. I ask, if you guys have super negative feedback, you're really angry with me because I didn't like a thing because it contradicted something in my childhood that I hold precious and dear. Could you just message me on Twitter or something? I'm on Twitter at David C. Robertson. You can davidcrobertson@gmail.com. You can also do this show, StarTrekUcast@gmail.com. Instead of just posting it to a thing that's forever where I can't respond to you, because that sucks.
Yeah, that does kind of suck.
Because I do this show because I want to talk to you guys. I don't do it because I'm trying to get people to I don't know, just listen to whatever I have to say. I want to hear what you guys have to say too. So I don't know. It's antithetical to the spirit of it. To some degree.
Like to find connection with everyone, which people are going to rate if they feel like rating, which is fine. We got lots of good 5-star reviews.
We do.
And some of them are very sweet, and we appreciate you guys. But yeah, that 1-star review, that's the one you're going to think about.
Well, that's the one I'm going to think about. But also, I feel bad because I didn't say I was done with Picard, man. I really wish that he had come to me and said, "Hey, man, what's up?" And I would have been like, "Hey, it wasn't that deep."
Yeah, I was just annoyed, and it was the first moment it had come on TV. Because we are recording this immediately after, we have great affection for the story. So if they do something that in whatever capacity breaks the universe a little bit for us, which for me and you, that's very different things. But
at times, other times not so much.
Oh, sure.
At any rate, let's have a Romulan ale and talk about it, man. Let's not go.
Yeah.
Just writing people off here. Come on.
I'm with you. Well, guys, thanks so much for hanging out with us. We'll be back real soon. I'll be back hopefully real soon with a song.
You'll be back sooner.
Yeah. By the way, I've been trying to drop the songs on Mondays, but I'm dropping them on the Stranded Panda YouTube channel and the Matthew Carroll podcast earlier. So if you are interested in getting these tracks earlier with a little bit of commentary, the Matthew Carroll podcast is a good place to do that.
And they're good songs, man. I've enjoyed every one of them I've heard. Yeah,
thanks, brother.
So
I'm a little nervous this week. I'm excited to sit down and try to do it. I know I've done it 12 times, 12 weeks, 12 times. I can do it again, but it always feels like a task. It always feels like a big a boulder to roll up the hill. An exciting boulder to roll up the hill, but a boulder to roll up the hill nonetheless. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing what you got, man. I look forward to it. I did enjoy this episode, and I don't know. I kind of want to go back and watch all 3 episodes now in a row, but I don't think I have time in my life.
Yeah, I found out that apparently at the premiere they showed the 3 episodes, the first 3, which makes sense. I feel like this is a good it's a good introduction to this whole story, and I feel like we just got the full introduction, So I'm excited about the trailer for next week, meeting this Romulan sort of guard guy, or Picard asking him to lend his sword to the mission. Did you see the trailer?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That sounded very very fantasy-esque, very Lord of the Rings. I don't know, excited about that. It seems neat.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm down to see it. I want to be right here talking to you about it next week.
And we were talking about it, the Romulans, how they've been sort of this one-note villain, and so I'm excited to have a Romulan kind of on the crew. That'll be neat. All right, well, guys, thanks so much. We'll be back with you soon. Peace.
Live long and prosper.
Thank Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.